Good morning, everyone. My name is Terry Wanke. I direct the Imago Film Festival here at Judson University. And I'd like to welcome you to the English Manor of the Mousetrap, which will be premiering in just 2 weeks here at Judson University, so we certainly invite you back to Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. Today we're here to talk about the Imago Film Festival. Some of those here in the audience have been with the Imago Film Festival for a long time. You've known about it and you supported it for quite some time. Some of you are new to the film festival, and I want to say a few things that will give you a sense of who we are and why we do what we do. To begin, I guess I could give you some basic facts. That's the who we are. We always have the Imago Film Festival here at Judson University in the spring. We have it annually. This is our 12th year of the Imago Film Festival. The Imago Film Festival showcases films that deal with issues of religion and ethics. That's our focus overall. We have films that come in from around the world. About half of our submissions come from outside the United States. We get about 80 to 100 submissions every year. We choose about a quarter of them to show at the film festival. The films are entered into a competition. There's cash prizes for that. At the film festival, in addition to showcasing films, we have speakers who come in to talk to us, speakers who can help us think differently about the films that we're seeing. So we have film critics and filmmakers who come in to talk to us. We have a red carpet celebration. We have an awards ceremony. We have people who attend the film festival from on campus and off. That's the basic facts of the matter. That's who we are as a film festival. But in terms of why we do what we do, I guess that I always go back to certain moments in the history of the film festival to reinforce why we do what we do. I think it's kind of undeniable that we live in a film culture. It's hard to get away from film in some ways. It's hard to not experience film in a day, if not an hour. We experience film through our phones, through our laptops, through screens at stores, through billboards as we go down the street. And oh yeah, I guess we do still experience it through our television and through those screens at movie theaters. Film is kind of a ubiquitous experience, but it's not always the same. In terms of the ways that we experience film, including the ways that I just mentioned, sometimes it is something of an isolated activity. Sometimes that's the case even when we gather together. So we go to see a movie at a movie theater. We look at that screen. We gather in a group, but we quickly file out afterwards. I think the message that we receive very often is that it's just entertainment. And I think we get that message because that makes film easy to sell. If you know this entertainment, it's a pretty fun thing. It goes on our entertainment to-do list. But then it doesn't become much more than that, right? We do file out after the movie's over and the next group comes in. When it comes to what we're doing with the film festival, at the start, when we founded the film festival, we wanted to create an opportunity for people to see films that they wouldn't see other places, films that have meaning and encourage people to talk. Now, when you get right down to it, we understand at some level that film is powerful, even if we don't talk about it all the time. And along those lines, I would just ask you to think about your favorite film, which I know is difficult for some of us, right? Picking out a favorite film. But think about that film that you always watch on TV, even though you have it on Blu-ray and can watch it without commercials. Every time there's that, you still watch it. Or think about that actress that always has the power to make you cry. Or think about that tragic film that makes you root for the hero, even though you know it's impossible for that hero to succeed. Films have power. They add meaning to our life. We have those films that mean so much to us, and when we have those films, we want to share them with other people. I'm sure that you've been compelled to talk about film. One of the things about the film festival is that we provide that opportunity for people to get together, to watch films that they wouldn't see anywhere else, to watch films that are very meaningful, that we can't dismiss as just entertainment. And the festival venue, okay, with the way that we set it up, with speakers who come in, with panel discussions, it's designed so that overall we talk about film. The moments along the way with the film festival that reaffirm what we're doing with the film festival are many. A few of them that I've been thinking about recently In the third year of our film festival, the third year is when things seemed to start to work together, where people understood what the festival was about. We were getting these submissions that were higher in quality. We were getting these submissions that seemed to fit our mission. We showed a film called Jaded, which was about basically a scam artist, a guy who took on the appearance of faith, of piety, so that he could get what he wanted. But in the end, one of the things that he realized is that he didn't really have anything of substance in his life. And he had to turn around somehow. It was left open-ended. We didn't know exactly what happened to him. And in some ways, that was good for our film festival. We showed the film one night, and that night, I remember, at the end, we had about half the people who filed out of the theater, but about the other half stayed in the theater. They physically stayed in the theater to continue to talk about this film. Sure, it was a long night for me, but I was happy that they stayed. I didn't want them to go home. I was happy to see them having this conversation about the multifaceted nature of this film experience. It was funny because he broke the fourth wall, the main character, he talked to us, but it was also touching and a little bit tragic, and that caused people to talk about it even more. In the seventh year of the film festival, I remember we showed a film called Cavie. And I remember this film particularly because after we showed it at the film festival, it went on to win an Oscar as a short. The film Cavie was about this situation of slavery. It was basically indentured servitude that people didn't recognize as slavery. And over the course of the film, a young boy was caught in the middle of this. Eventually, there are people from the outside who decided to take a chance and bring him out of slavery. At the very end of the film, we were left with the boy walking away from the bricks that he'd been making. And along the way, he stepped on one of the bricks, leaving behind his footprint. It was an incredibly poignant movie overall. And after the movie, there was this great moment for me. I always love film festivals because people clap for films. We don't really do that when we go to the Cineplex, right? But at film festivals, people clap for films. After we showed Cavie, there was this long silence. And maybe you know where I'm going with this. After a while, there was that single clap, and then it built, and then there was this thunderous applause. Because people were impacted by what they saw. Okay, they felt in a way that was different. I remember at the film festival when we had Ralph Winter come to speak, producer of the X-Men and the Star Trek films. And I talked to an attendee of the film festival afterwards, someone who was a film student at another university who had come to the film festival, who said that I'm not only as committed to making films after hearing this, but I want to make a different kind of film. I want to make a different kind of film. And I remember just this spring when Doug Jones came to the film festival talking to a student after the fact who said that I felt like he was talking just to me and I felt special. And these are the moments that I always go back to when it comes to why we have the film festival. In some ways, we're creating an experience. It's not just on the to-do list of entertainment. We're creating an experience with the film festival. And it's something that I want to carry on with the Imago Film Festival. A while ago, there was a survey that was done to find out the values of consumers, because people who sell stuff want to know what the values of consumers are. I wasn't so interested in the consumer part. I was interested in the determination of values. They were looking at a particular demographic that ranged from teen to 40s. That was the age demographic overall. People who were implicated within the context of a film culture, within the context of a social media culture, and they found that the values that were most important to this group were connectivity and meaning. They were searching for these two things. And I think that that's what we offer with the film festival. Today we're going to offer you a little slice of the film festival, and as far as those things that I mentioned, films that have meaning, films that give us an opportunity to connect with people, I can think of no better film to showcase than the one we have here today, which is the Butterfly Circus, a film which has been profoundly meaningful for millions of people and has been shared widely. So we're going to take a look at the Butterfly Circus, a short film, and then afterwards talk with the people who are involved with making it. So we'll talk with the writer-director, Josh Weigel, and we'll talk with one of the stars of the film, Doug Jones. So without further ado, let's watch the Butterfly Circus. over the last few days, we've been talking about how difficult it is sometimes to follow a great speaker or a great film. But today I think we have the perfect way in which to follow a great film. We can talk with a few of the people involved in the making of this great film. So let me introduce Joshua Weigel, who's the writer-director of the Butterfly Circus. Joshua has made several short films and is currently working the Butterfly Circus into a feature film. I also like to introduce Doug Jones, one of the stars of the Butterfly Circus, also seen as the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, Abe Sapien in Hellboy, and as Cochise in Falling Skies. So please join me in welcoming Josh and Doug. Hi, guys.
Hey. Hello.
Hope you're comfy on any stools. I was considering utilizing our period furniture over here, but then thought better of it.
We'd be cozy on that, wouldn't we?
Well, yeah, the couch looks like it could be owned by Sigmund Freud. We'd have to analyze whoever sat on that. I'd like to start off with a question for you, Josh. I'm wondering how this ball got rolling. So I would like you to walk us through the original process, how it came to you as an idea, how you started to develop it as a story, and then the early parts of production.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little hard to answer because it happened over a long period of time, relatively. I would say, these ideas originally, as I mentioned when we screened it yesterday, with just a lot of prayer. My heart and goal has always been that God would become a part of the projects in a unique way. And so it's just been a lifetime of prayer that His Spirit would inspire ideas in me and other believers in this industry. So, I believe it starts with that. And one day the beginnings of the idea popped into my mind. I don't know why they just did that day, but they did, and I quickly realized that it was a big idea. It was an expensive idea. I had done several other short films, and I realized this was going to be something that was a bit out of reach. I wasn't at the time connected to a lot of money people or a lot of resources, so I knew this would take a lot of it. So I kind of just filed it back in the file cabinet of my mind, deep back, thinking it would never really happen. And so it just kind of moved on with other things. And then we heard about this film competition, and long story short, we decided to do this competition. And as exhausting as these things can be, we just felt like, we just need to keep doing it. So I think about almost a year went by since the last film I had done. And we became finalists in this film project. And so there were 15 finalists chosen out of a number of hundred. And each team was given $30,000 to do a bigger film, a 20-minute or less short film. So once that happened for us, I thought, well, maybe we can do that idea. And so I don't even know if I told Rebecca, my wife, who writes with me, about the idea before this, because I really didn't think we were going to get back to it. So again, and once we got that sort of seed money, I shared it with her, and we immediately began to expand it together, and we do our best work together, and it really just kind of snowballed into basically what we saw here. And along the way, she remembered Nick Vujicic, hearing about him at some point in the past. And so with short films, you really need things that communicate a lot very quickly. And so, it was obvious to us that if we could get Nick to be that character Will, with his disability, it would just embody so much. And so through a long series of events, we ended up getting him involved, and he kind of finished off the story elements with his physicality and all that. And it just, that's kind of the short version of it all.
Well, then, Doug, how did you become involved with Josh and then the production?
Well, I met Josh at a film festival, the 168 Film Project, the year before, I guess, right? And I was a presenter that night at the awards ceremony for that festival, where they screened the winning film, which was Josh's, called Stained. And it was just another one of these, like, I'm changed. So I had to meet him afterwards and say, like, who are you? I love you. Love your movies, and I want to be in whatever you make. So maybe 8 months later, he calls up and said, did you mean what you said? And they sent me a script, and I did it. Reading the Butterfly Circus script, I was like, I'm changed. So, so I said I have to be in this. Yes. So that's how that came about. Yeah. And here's a question I had for you though. How did you know I was a contortionist? That I could get out of a suitcase? How did you know that? Did we talk about that?
Well, look at you. I mean, you just had to be.
All right,
No,
good.
you may have mentioned it, or someone mentioned it to us.
Bob Yerkes must have.
And if you're ever
Bob, yeah.
feeling a little down about yourself, just call Doug. Just call Doug. It's a great way of making you feel better.
Bob Yerkes, the Poppy, who played Poppy, the trapeze artist. He and I have known each other many years, and he would have known I was a contortionist. And he was
that was probably it.
He was one of your producers, right?
Yeah, he was, and he's the older guy in the
Right.
film, and he is actually a circus legend.
Yes.
He was the classic left home at 16 and joined the circus guy, and has a whole history in the circus. Knew everybody in the circus. Everybody knows who Bob Yerkes is, and became a stuntman in Hollywood. Just as a side note, he became a. Any time in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, anyone was falling off of a tall building, that was Bob Yerkes at the time, falling off. So you'll know.
Amazing stunts, yes.
So you got involved with the film because of previous experience with the film that Josh had made, the script, and of course the blue leotard, right? That was
And the
part
blue
of it too.
leotard was a
blue
draw.
leotard.
He said no till I
right?
sent him a picture of that.
If I get to wear that blue leotard and pose funny, I'm in.
Rounding out the cast, I mentioned this to you before, Josh. We have this, what I think is a magical combination of leads in the film with Nick and Doug and Eduardo, in part because I don't think that other people would naturally go this way. These three people fit together. With Nick, lots of people knew him, but didn't know him as a film actor. Lots of people knew Doug, but didn't know him for his beautiful face. And then with Eduardo, lots of people knew him, but not necessarily in this country. How did he become part of the film?
This was an example, this whole project, of how things can just begin to come together. Something magnetic about it. And I credit God with that too, because again, we were not really well connected with a lot of people. So thankfully, Doug came on board. I had a friend who knew Eduardo, and we were looking to cast the showman, and it was really difficult to find the right person. And I had an older version in mind anyway. But this friend of mine knew him and threw his name out there, and I was familiar with the film Bella that he was in, and thought, well, that could be really great, actually. And so at the same time, we were pursuing Nick. And so it was just kind of this perfect storm of going after a number of elements. And when Eduardo read the script and learned that Nick was possibly coming on board, he jumped in with us just a few weeks, I think, before production or so. Yeah, it's perfect. Oh.
We just got a visitation.
Did I fully answer that? So anyway, that's just how the cast began to come together, yeah.
Once you had things roughly coordinated, you could bring these people together in one place. What happened with the shoot? Tell us about the shoot. Tell us about what things were as you imagined them as you were shooting, what things changed, or what came out of the collaborative process working with other people? Good
question, yeah. I don't know how often your film ends up like you envision it. What you hope is that it's some version of it, or it captures what you hope it captures in all the different ways. And so with a film like this, you take what you can get in a lot of ways, but what you need to do is set the bar really high. So if you shoot high, you'll hit somewhere up there. And so we did that across the board with the cast, with the locations, with the props. And so we ended up with a company called LA Circus, who just had an acre full of circus props and everything. And they actually came out of the circus as well. They knew Bob Yerkes. So they had actual circus tents and all the different things. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. We took whatever we could get from them. And our designer, Yeva McCloskey, is just so natural at all the design stuff that we needed. And so she was able to get into the whole mix and find the stuff that we needed. So we just began pulling whatever we could, and the money actually slowly came in as we were moving along, which is something that isn't common. Usually you have the money before you make the movie to make the movie. And so, again, we shot high. We figured, well, we'll need X amount at least, and let's just move. Let's get this train moving. And as a side note, I wouldn't say that's always the way to start a project, but sometimes you just have to take a chance. You just really have to stick your neck out, and there were days we didn't know we would finish the movie. You know, we had about $50,000 when we were maybe midway through production, but suddenly we needed a lot more. And there was a day where we sat there and needed to place the order for all the lights and the rest of it again, and we didn't have the money. And so my wife, one of the greatest things she did for this project was find resources in people and resources financially. And so one of the PAs on set happened to know someone who had some money and really liked Nick and thought they would like this project. So made a call, long story short, we had $50,000 in the bank within a few days. And we just kept going and kept going. So you know, all these little miracles would happen, and all along the way, we just kept the goals high. And I was demanding a lot of people, knowing that at least, you know, if we can get close to that, we'll accomplish it. But it was excruciatingly difficult. There were so many things that went wrong. There were, you know, we'd make our way through the scenes for these night shoots, and then realize the day shoot hasn't been prepped. And so we'd have to drive 2 hours, and there were problems with art department or whatever. You know, and so we'd be shooting the shantytown scene the next day, and I'm literally out there dressing the sets after a whole night shoot. And, you know, the crew's coming just in 2 hours. And so it was full of those experiences, and it just kept us in a real place of need. So, you know, there's all kinds of benefits to that as well. You know, you see God come through. But long story short, I think with this kind of a project, you got to take a chance, keep the goals really high, expect a lot out of the people that you're working with, and make sure you're working with talented people that can almost instinctually deliver. And then, you know, when we wrapped this whole thing, it was kind of like, I hope we got what we need, and we got into post, and thankfully, many scenes, there would be one take that worked, and that's kind of the nature of this style of filmmaking, at least. But that's how it went.
I wanted to ask about your character development, Doug. When the story develops, one of the things that we realize is that we're not necessarily dealing with misfits in the circus, but we're dealing with broken people. So we see them basically sharing their magic, their wonder with these people. But then we have those flashbacks, and it includes a flashback for the strong man, who traditionally wouldn't necessarily be seen as a broken person because he's physically strong, and that's valued by the culture. But we get that backstory. We don't get a backstory for your character.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, I figured there was. So yeah, steer us in that direction.
He had it written. He was ready to shoot it, but I had to be in Nova Scotia for that week they were shooting that sequence. So they had to shoot it without me. But anyway, you knew the backstory of I was a pickpocket, and with my gliding in and out skills, and so they would have found me that way and rehabbed me into the circus as a contortionist. Yeah. So anybody, yeah, but just simply because I was out of town during the shoot. During that part of the shoot.
That was a challenge, actually, just in a practical level, was
on
the
everybody's
scheduling.
schedules. Yes.
You know, the 3 or 4 main people, getting all of their schedules to work out was ridiculous. It was so challenging, and then we just get it just right, and it was such a tough schedule to pull off. And we did actually have to schedule an additional shoot just to accommodate all of that. But again, you're just juggling a lot, so. We kind of felt like we were in the circus as we were shooting a film about the circus.
Well, one of the things that I would note, though, is that sometimes we talked about getting those shots and not being sure you got them until after you look at them. But sometimes I think that they're the happy accidents that work well with film. And at some level, I like the film as it is, not knowing your backstory, just knowing that we have a collection of broken people, and that inevitably you're one of those broken people, but we can fill in the blank ourselves when we're viewing it. Working with Nick, comfortable in front of people, but never been on a film set before, not used to working the beats of a script. How did you work that out?
Yeah, that was probably our biggest step of faith, was going after Nick. And when we thought about him, we didn't know if he lived anywhere near us. We thought, well, he probably lives in Australia. This is going to be tough. He's never acted. How do you get a hold of this guy? Well, we found out he lived 20 minutes from us. He actually lives in the Los Angeles suburbs. So it was, oh man, it was such a relief to just know that, because that was just square one. Can we communicate to him or his people and figure this out? So we began, I think, 3 months before, trying to get Nick involved. And I actually knew his assistant, his personal assistant at the time. I ran into him at a church. I hadn't seen him in, I think a couple of years. And we started chatting, and he told me what he's doing, and we happened to be attempting to reach out to Nick right at that time. So I told him we were interested. I gave him a couple of my films, but I also had another acquaintance that said that he knew Nick well, and Nick agreed to work with him on something else and felt like he had a good chance at it. So we sort of went with that and felt like, okay, well, it sounds like you maybe have a better connect there. And we left it in his court while we were doing other things. Well, months go by. 2 months go by, and I could not get an answer. Couldn't get yes or couldn't get no. And I kept saying, well, maybe I should reach out to him. And the guy's like, no. I'll do it. Well, we're now 2 weeks before production, and we don't have Nick at all. And his schedule books up a year in advance at least. And so, the possibility of this working are getting slimmer and slimmer. So, I finally I said, I have to do this myself. And the guy says, well, look, he said no anyway, so we don't have Nick anymore. And so the whole floor falls out from under us. And I just remember that day going, this is not how this story ends. And I just had this confidence that somehow this is going to work out. So I reached out to the guy who was assisting him, and I told him what was going on. I said, just whatever you can do. So anyway, he just sort of boldly went up to Nick and said, hey, I need you to pay attention to this. Here's my friend's work. Here's what they're trying to do. And it was really confusing to Nick what was going on, because there were so many people coming at him. So he put it all together and realized that our film was one he actually did want to be a part of. He watched our work, and I had a meeting with him that night, and the next day he committed to being involved. So it was just instant. He went from, I'm not involved, I'm busy, to, I want to do it, my schedule just cleared, count me in. I've never acted before, though. So, but he was confident. He's like, I can do this, it's no problem. And so we went into it thinking, okay, he's comfortable in front of people, that's definitely a bonus. How can, what can he do? And we had no way of knowing until we got there. So, but Nick has just a lot of natural abilities with acting. So it did not take long to couple that comfort in front of people with an understanding of the characters and running through some scenes together with other actors before he really just, melted into that role. And it was such a relief, calling action and seeing him pull this off. It was a beautiful thing. So thank God for that, because it would have, again, it was all riding on that character, really.
When it comes to the film, we finish production, you go into post, and you have a finished film. It goes on the film festival circuit, not circus, but sometimes it feels like that. Film festival circuit garners a lot of awards along the way, a lot of recognition. You have a sort of outpouring of personal reaction from people who see it. And since then, it's been available for viewing on the internet. How many people have seen it, as far as hits, as far as you could estimate? How many languages into?
Okay, so it's got 47 million views right now. We just did the math. We've got hundreds of links that we track. And early on, just to let you know, it got on the internet somehow. We posted on the website for the competition, which was a part of the competition's rules. But then it got on YouTube. And so we debated for a little while whether or not we should leave it there. And we just decided, we had the feature film in mind, and we decided, well, let's just see what happens with it. And, hundreds of thousands of views were coming in monthly. And it peaked out around 1 million views a month, and we're still at about 1 million views a month, and it's, I don't know, 6 years later or so. And so that's been huge for us in terms of building the feature film. But it went so well, it was so exciting, and we didn't know what to expect when we finished, but we ended up winning about 35 film festival awards, and it was quite a run for us, but it's still going. It's ultimately the film is doing work in people's lives that we hoped and prayed for, and so regardless of all the challenges and what's happening, it's exciting to get those emails, about that stuff. So.
And that's set up for my follow-up question. You've been working on developing this as a feature film. What is important to you as you're working out a deal for this feature film to preserve as you move from this short film, which is so important to you, to that feature?
There's so many challenges to doing a feature film. I mean, the list is very long, and there's all kinds of different factors. One of the factors we have is that I'm a first-time director in terms of feature films, and so that's a lot to expect of any feature film. They're always a bit reticent to put a first-timer in a feature film. Well, this one happens to be probably a $25 million independent film. It could be done for $100 million by a studio, but to really get it done well, it's probably in that space. And that is an extraordinarily high number when you think of the other factors. So we don't have big names involved in cast. I'm a first-time director. So our goal all along has been to preserve the spiritual nature and the core of this story and this film. My wife and I feel very strongly there is an enormous potential for this film. So we know that's the most important thing. We preserve whatever deal it is. It preserves what we know this can be spiritually. And the feature film story will contain what you saw today, but it also has another plot to it that's thrilling and even more dynamic. So you're going to get a whole new layer of experience with it. So that's also a part of the story that's in peril. It's not something that I would be comfortable just letting anyone oversee because of the spiritual nature of it. So sometimes you have to let go as a filmmaker and just trust people that maybe don't have your worldview working with you, and it'll end up close to what you want. But there are others that you have to have the right people overseeing it.